The biggest silent killer in relationships is not cheating. It's not the arguments. It's not even lack of communication or finances. It's the resentment behind those things. It's the resentment behind you feeling betrayed, like your partner, stabbed you in the back by cheating. It's the resentment behind feeling like it's emotionally draining every time you want to express yourself to your partner and, it turns into arguments. It's the resentment that builds behind feeling like you never understood and you guys are always on a different page and it's just really frustrating. It's the resentment behind feeling like you shouldn't be struggling as much as you are, right? You guys should be in a better position. But all that resentment boils down to one core thought that you never want to get in the habit of thinking towards your partner or in respect of your partner. And it's the line in your mind that goes, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to remind them to appreciate me. I shouldn't have to continue to communicate my needs to them. They should know and get it by now. They should know what I need. I shouldn't have to be going through this pain right now from them cheating on me. I shouldn't have to be in this rough position they have me in. I shouldn't have to keep putting effort in if they're not going to. And then once you start going down that road of the I shouldn't have to ... right? Fill in whatever you want to fill the blank in behind it is, that's when things start to unravel. Because the moment you start adopting that core line that runs through your mind that may even be justified for whatever the reason is, right? That's when you start to withdraw emotionally from your relationship. You stop contributing, you stop communicating, and you start keeping score instead. And the moment you start keeping that score, that becomes the core root seed of the resentment in your relationship. That's when the love starts to fade, spark starts to die, and you start going into technical mode, tit for tat, eye for an eye. I give an inch whenever you give an inch, right? And it becomes this game, if you will, or this, mission of trying to get retribution or, trying to get what you deserve back, right? And it becomes very trade, right? It stops becoming love and it becomes transactional, right? And now you get this whole scoreboard, and that scoreboard becomes the foundation of your resentment for it to build on it. Because now you become hyper focused to it, hypersensitive, to where you're just waiting for any moment to come along to show another reason why you should put another tally on the board for what you've done versus what they haven't done. Where you're showing up, where they're not showing up. What you've done about a situation that they have not, that you shouldn't have had to do. And, you start counting the amount of times you've done it versus the times they have not done it, to where you're literally subconsciously conditioning yourself to compete with your partner, to make them an opponent instead of a companion. Instead of your teammate, you're making them your adversary. Because here's the thing you have to realize. When you start communicating on replay, like a loop in your mind, I shouldn't have to be doing different things in your relationship, then that's when your brain switches off from a solutions-based focused or, how to get the results I want. You start focusing on all the things that you don't want to be happening, all that you shouldn't have to put up with, right? It shouldn't. And even though it may be justifiable to some degree, it starts putting you in this almost entitled sense of mentality, right? Entitled mindset, to where now you're approaching your relationship in a more of a, what have you done for me lately a way versus a, hey, let's build each other up and come together and pour into each other type of way. And of course, your partner is going to receive that in most likely a defensive manner. Right? They're going to start trying to defend their character, defend themselves, because here's what happens whenever we get into a space like that, to where we start, thinking, what have you done for me lately? I shouldn't have to do these type of things. You should be doing these type of things. We usually give off a certain energy, right? It can even sometimes come off as like an arrogance or, pretentious or whatever the case is, to where now your partner feels like you're treating them as if you're better than them, or as if they're not enough or they don't measure up, when really, and the core root wound for you is you've been feeling slighted. You've been feeling like you've been getting a lot less than what you require in the relationship from them, right? So you start shutting down more out of a way to kind of just reverse engineer a way of preserving your value and and looking out for yourself and having self-respect for yourself. You figure if I give them less of me and I start pulling back and I just start doing less, then I'll feel better about what they're not doing, right? Until they start showing up more, I won't show up more. And where, yes, even as a coach, I will absolutely and have absolutely coached my clients towards, hey, if you're not seeing the things you need to see in someone, then pull back your value. Absolutely. But you don't do that without also trying to communicate and be on the same page as to why you're doing what you're doing. See, it becomes games and just keeping score whenever your primary focus is, oh, I'm just going to pull back or just not do until they do, without healthy dialogue to talk through those things. Yes, if you've mentioned what you're noticing along the way already, you've spoken up and you voiced it and it's not being heard, or you feel like you're still not being understood properly, or you feel like it is being understood, but your partner's not taking the actions to address or accommodate the things, the concern you brought to them, then yes, now you start to pull back that value, right? When you're not starting to see the results consistently after you've been trying to speak up and you voiced what you needed, then yes, start pulling that value back. But even then, it shouldn't just become the stagnant norm of what you do now. That's just a step initially to make sure you're respecting yourself, but then you're supposed to go have a conversation, have the dialogue, sit down about what you're noticing and why you've pulled back some of your value or doing certain things, because you feel like you're almost disrespecting yourself to keep putting this effort in and you're not getting it back in return. This is the dialogue that should be happening. You should be saying this to your partner, right? You're not supposed to just sit in the space of pulling back and they pull back and now you guys are in this Cold War standoff or something, right? Where everyone stays on their respective side of the house and all this nonsense, or you just don't communicate with each other that well, because now you're living in a toxic environment, a space that you don't even like, where your very safe haven that's supposed to be your place to let your hair down, your home, becomes one of the last places you'd like to spend your time. You start finding yourself finding ways or reasons to be out of the house more often because you're avoiding talking through the concerns. And so where, yes, you put the boundaries up to preserve and protect yourself, but you've also done a great job at ruining your ability to find the harmony you want. You set the dynamic up to where all you're doing is protecting your value. You're not actually going and trying to, honor your value and making sure that your partner can mesh with you and your standards. So absolutely stand on your boundaries, right? Pull your value back if you need to. If you've already tried to voice and speak up about what you need or what you're noticing and you're still getting the same experience and you don't feel good about it, because you have to look at yourself in the mirror every day at the end of the day. But that should not be where it ends for you, because your partner is not your enemy. You don't want them to be your enemy. You don't want to be mad at them forever and build resentment and all those things. So make sure you're communicating as well. Let them know, hey, you feel like they're still not making the turnaround. You're still not seeing any change. You're still feeling away. And this is why you're doing what you have to do. But you would love for you guys to be able to work it out and be on the right page, right? Speak life into what you want still, while you're still honoring and protecting your value. But ultimately, if nothing's moving and it never gets to that space to where you actually start feeling good and like, you're being honored and respected and all the things, then now you have to make a decision to leave, right? Don't teeter-tot. Don't keep sitting in the situation being miserable and venting to your friends and talking about how horrible your partner is, when you can always make the decision to start figuring out how to separate your lives. If you can't be happy with your partner, you must be happy without them. There's no middle ground where you just stay miserable and keep them, right? It has to make sense. It has to be healthy, because if it's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for them. So the monumental shift you need to make is getting out of that headspace of saying to yourself, I shouldn't have to. And the switch you make is asking yourself, what can I do to help us grow? Or even better yet, we can switch it from I shouldn't have to what should I be doing to help us grow? How can I help this situation, this problem, help bring it to a resolve and to a peace and get us back on track together so I can feel the way I want to feel in my relationship, not the way I feel like I've been pushed into having to feel and having to operate, right? That core shift of that thought process is a game changer for you being able to save your relationship and make it stronger than ever, instead of being a part of its destruction. Even if you're justifiably so to be upset, right? It's not going to help you by this leaning in with being upset and taking a defensive approach versus going more on the offensive to try to create the results you want. Where can you help the circumstance? Where can you help get you guys back on track? Where can you help find the core obstacle and problem as to why your partner's struggling to meet you in the middle? The second thing you need to do is, instead of focusing so much on keeping score at this point, right, and keeping this tally marks and stuff of the things you shouldn't have to do versus what they are or are not doing and all that stuff, is focus more on being the partner you want, right? Focus more on modeling the example of who you want to have in your relationship with you, right? Meaning, show up as the partner you would want to show up if you were in your partner's shoes, not living up to the standard, right? Who would you want to have in your life if you were the person that was in your partner's shoes, needing your partner to step in and help you get back on track and take accountability and become aware and be inspired to want to do better and step their game up, right? If you start asking yourself that question, it changes the ball game and how you approach navigating the circumstance. So now instead of you sitting there and thinking about how to, create divide unintentionally, right, by trying to protect and respect yourself and tell your partner what you're not going to do anymore, or you're not giving up any inch, you're not giving them any rope, right? Instead of doing that, you start asking yourself, who can I be, or how can I evolve, and how can I be better so that I inspire my partner to be better? It's a way more promising focal point and mission to go on versus just doubling down on being defensive and retracted and distant from your partner, which ultimately always will lead to a breakup, especially when you have resentment building under the hood. Because then you start to literally put that villain mask over, or that filter over, your partner instead of seeing them as the person that loves you and you love them back. And last, and probably most importantly, if your needs or standards aren't being met, speak up. Tell your partner. Have that dialogue, right? Take the time, find a way to make sure you can show up to that conversation in a productive state, right? More calm and conservative, so you can actually go and relay and communicate clearly, effectively, in a way that's non-threatening to your partner, so they can embrace what you want to say more, right? To what you have to get off your chest and what you need to relay to them, to be way more inclined to hear you out if you're approaching them in a concerning, way, inquisitive way as well, being curious about what the struggle is, why they're not meeting you halfway, not going in assuming that they don't care and that they just want to treat you poorly or not show up for you, right? That's how you keep making them a villain. And it's much harder to forgive and want to work with a villain than it is to want to forgive and work with a human being, a person that deep down loves you and you love them, right? That's way easier of a person to want to work with versus thinking you're walking into trying to work with, the monster, the bad guy, if you will. And as always, if you need help breaking your pattern, your cycle of getting into that train of thought that says, I shouldn't have to, so I'm not, and you're starting to do things that are self-sabotaging your relationship versus helping it get the results you want to get, and you want help building the skills and how to do that, then email or DM me the word coaching, and we will get to work as long as you're truly ready to put that work in. If you're not ready for one-on-one coaching, don't have the time, space, or maybe even the resources, then at least email or DM me the word revival to join my Relationship Revival Hub community, where you can learn the same things I teach my clients one-on-one at your own pace, on your own time. Either way, do something to get in the race. Let's get it.